There was an audible gasp among the fans, like the sudden hush in a crowded room, when just as the second half whistle blew at the Seoul World Cup Stadium, Inigo Martinez didn't step onto the pitch. Instead, Gerard Martin, a name that many supporters had barely whispered, was handed the left-side centre-back role. How could a player who had been the linchpin of Barcelona's defence last season vanish without so much as a warm-up stretch? The substitution board flickered and out went Ronald Araujo, making way for Andreas Christensen on the right. But still, no Martinez. It felt as though the script had been flipped mid-scene, leaving everyone scrambling for the next line. What on earth was happening? And just when the crowd thought they might remain in the dark, Christensen ripped the silence apart with a thunderbolt from over 30 metres out, sending the ball, glinting like moonlight, curling into the top corner. The roar that followed almost drowned out the question on everyone's lips. Where was Inigo Martinez? The plot had thickened, and the second half had only just begun. At first glance, the change seemed routine, part of the pre-season shuffle, perhaps tossed in to gift a youthful substitute a taste of minutes under the floodlight. But as the game wore on, the absence of Martinez felt less like a cameo omission and more like a deliberate plot twist. Coaches often manage star player minutes during friendlies, yet you'd expect at least a cameo. Not Martinez. He didn't tread a single blade of grass from kickoff to final whistle. No hobbling off injured, no grimace on the bench, just complete invisibility, as if he'd been written out of the script entirely. In the echoing hush of the empty tunnel, you could almost hear the sneakers of puzzled journalists shuffling, trying to decode Flick's silent direction. A simple rotation? Or a more calculated gambit? The answer arrived courtesy of familiar whispers in the Barcelona corridors, reports from sport peering through the fog. Martinez hadn't pulled up lame, nor had he complained of any niggle. He was simply fatigued. Imagine a marathon runner pausing at mile 22, not because his leg is snapped, but because every fibre in his body begs for respite. That, Flick decided, was a risk not worth taking in mid-tour. After a grueling previous season, where Martinez had been the bedrock alongside Pau Cubarsí, Barcelona's coaching staff judged that cushioning him now would pay dividends later. It was a decision made in the quiet corridors of precaution, where the well-being of a veteran beats out the siren call of instant spectacle. The 34-year-old defender, whose experience reads like a roadmap through La Liga's toughest terrains, thus began his rest period in Seoul, missing the clash not out of injury, but simply human limits. To appreciate this choice, one must rewind the tape to last season's Symphony of Defence, where Martinez and Cubarsí moved in near telepathy, each anticipating the other's shadow, cutting lines like master artisans. Yet time's arrow spares no warrior. At 34, recovery becomes a fragile art. Minutes must be parcelled like precious wine, each drop measured to ensure the veteran remains sharp and commanding as the campaign's crescendo approaches. Flick, astute in his stewardship, knows that a tired Martinez in a tight title race moment could spell disaster. Better to grant him this one-match intermission, trusting the squad to hold the line than to gamble on fatigue in a crucial fixture down the road. And so the precaution was taken, a silent nod to long-term strategy over short-term applause. Still, absence can only last so long before return demands its own fanfare. Come Monday, when Barcelona lock horns with Daegu FC, Martinez is slated to reclaim his spot, like a seasoned actor stepping back into a role he owned for years. The final act of this 10-day Asian tour will see him back in the starting Exine, the familiar heavy armour of the Blaugrana crest once more strapped across his chest. And once that whistle blows, he'll bring the reassurance that only a veteran of his pedigree can offer, healing the temporary void his fatigue created. Then, like a touring company's last curtain call, Barcelona will board a flight back to Spain, souvenirs in hand, lessons learned, and a squad tempered by travel and trial. Amid this revolving door, Gerard Martin emerged, a steady presence in unfamiliar terrain. One of just 3 left-footed defenders in the squad, alongside Martinez and Alejandro Balda, he showcased the versatility that every top squad craved. In a role thrust upon him unexpectedly, he moved with quiet assurance, his strides echoing the confidence of a man who knows that sometimes opportunity arrives masked in surprise. His performance painted the picture of a reliable understudy, ready to step into the spotlight when the lead actor needs respite. For Flick, such depth is like having an extra shield in battle, a tactical boon that relieves pressure on the core and fortifies against the unexpected curveballs of a long season. As the night in Seoul wound down, the floodlights dimmed on a friendly that became far more than a mere exhibition. It was a microcosm of modern football's balancing act, between spectacle and strategy, between the hunger for instant thrills and the wisdom of long-term planning. Inigo Martinez's rested frame, Gerard Martin's steady calm, and Christensen's reverberating long-range scream of a goal all blended into a single melody of adaptation. What began as routine rotation morphed into a lesson in squad management, leaving fans to ponder not just who played, but and crucially, what the next chapter holds when Barcelona touch down back home. The final whistle in Inigo beckons, and with it, the return of the absent veteran. But for now, all eyes remain fixed on the horizon, eager to see how this story unfolds.